welcome the entrepreneur or our speaker on stage. So if we could have the song, we welcome him in a very special manner. And at Startup Grind, we don't pay our speakers, okay? This is something that really makes a difference between us and other events, probably. It's them. They pay us with their time. So I want every one of you to just stand up and give the warmest applause, the biggest rock star applause and cheering that we can give to Manel. Welcome. Good. Oh, how did that feel, Manel? Welcome.
Good, thank you.
How many times have you been welcomed as a rock star?
Not that many.
Not that many. There's always a first time. I'm glad you spent it with 130 people.
Oh, thank you.
Good. I'd like to introduce you before delving into your career and the questions that obviously we want to learn from. So Manel is the head of studio in Spain, okay? That means he's ruling, basically he's been kicking ass for how many years have you been here in Barcelona?
In the industry in Barcelona, it's 10 years now.
Okay, in those many years he has been kicking ass and placing Barcelona as one of the top companies, one of the top cities, if not the top city, within King, okay? So he's the person to talk to when you want to scale a business and grow business. I learned from him in an event of Barcelona Tech City back in July, I think, or right after the summer. I was like impressed. I said, okay, we need to learn from people from Manel. So are you going to tell us something about that?
Whatever you want.
Perfect. Let's start. Oh, by the way, what have you learned about Startup Grind? Did you know Startup Grind before?
I know.
Nobody knows about Startup Grind. We need to do a better work about that. Cool. Let's start with a little bit. We always ask our speakers, what do they take away from their degree? What did they study? So what did you study? How did you build up your career? I know you're a developer, right?
Yeah, so basically, in terms of studies, I didn't follow the normal course. I ended up doing a master in science in computer game development in London at the University of Westminster. That was the end. But before I got there, I did all kinds of things. So that's a long story.
Can you hear people in the back? Can you hear? Yeah. So. Can you get the volume? Okay, perfect. Cool. I want to know, because most of the people here, they want to learn about how to grow the business. They also want to learn how do you guys come up with games that are so great as Candy Crush? How do you engage people in our Senate like Celia Villalobos playing Candy Crush while they should be working and all of that? So I was wondering, how do you come from your developer background to work for a company such as King?
So how did I transition?
Exactly.
Well, it's a long story. Basically, I started as developer, working in Madrid. I was hired in an event that was called Demoscene event. That basically is where you create a code that makes images dance with music. It's something that few of us like to do in Spain, about 1,000 people. So we will gather together and do that stuff. And then I was offered the job, so that's when I started as a developer. Back then I was studying industrial electronics. So I shifted from hardware and all of that into software, and I went to work to Madrid. In Madrid, I worked for 1 year at Dynamic Multimedia, working on a football game called PC Football. I felt that I didn't really agree with the management of the company, so that probably was my route on management. I always had a bit of management, entrepreneurial type of spirit. And I moved to the UK, where I worked for several years, taking different roles as head technician there, or lead programmer, as we called back then. And then basically there was a time when a friend of mine started a startup here in Barcelona. He's called Gerard. And he contacted me to see whether I would like to join him. And I said, yes, of course, why not? So I came back to Spain, and then we started working together on a company which was called Microsoft. That's the company that he had created. And at that point, he wanted to sell it to a big multinational company. But things didn't go really as expected. So the company basically went down. We had to fire a lot of people. We learned a lot throughout all those experiences. And then in a matter of a year, it's when I took control of the studio. And then we ramped up the company, and we sold it to a big multinational. And then from there, that was called Digital Chocolate. I had the opportunity there to work with Trip Hopkins, who was one of the first employees of Apple, and also was the founder of a company which is called Electronic Arts, which is a very large games development company. And we worked for several years there. I managed to release the only one game that competed against Zynga, back then, social game in the world. So that gave us a lot of reputation in Barcelona. It was the first big achievement that I would say the city did in terms of a game, a global release, a product made here. And after a while is when I was contacted by King, and then I joined them. So
it's good. I actually, you said like very modestly, very humbly, but I said, okay, yeah, when I took over the company was, going downhill. And so basically I ramped it up. What did you do? What happened there? What key thing do you remember that you applied there and it made the company go hockey stick?
Okay, there is basically two key areas. One is strategy and the other one is execution. So on a strategy, I created a model to map and understand games markets, which basically says that it's very important, platform-wise, it's very important to decide which platforms you develop for, because that determines, it's like a funnel. So if you develop a game for, let's say, the mobile market, you know that the mobile market in 2 years' time will be about a 40 billion market. Now, if you develop games for, let's say, Nintendo DS, that's a much smaller market. So the same game, exactly the same product, in two different places, sells very completely different. The other part of the strategy was picking up the right product. So there's a huge trend towards a certain type of genres on all the platforms, and there is a distribution of this, like if you have 40 billion, and if you create a specific type of genre that there is a lot of demand, that will be a nice chunk of that. When it's a market that starts, that it's really nice. When it's a more mature market, then you have to consider how you can improve versus your competitors. The other part in a strategy is the business model. So basically creating a set of a framework to work on that made strategies a lot more solid. In execution, there's a lot of details. Basically is create small teams with a very clear leader in a way that they can scale productivity in parallel. And in teams, the easiest way is, for me, is the biggest pillar. I analyze teams in 5 pillars, but the number 1 pillar, which is the highest correlated to success later on, is what I call vision, strategic vision. And that is 3 questions. Like, first one is that, is there a vision for what you want to execute or what you want to make? Yes, no. The other one is, does the team that has to execute this believe that this is a great vision? Yes, no. And finally, is there a plan that the team believes and everyone believes it's good to execute this vision? Okay, so these 3 questions, if some of these fail, it means that you have to rethink. So basically applying these principles, more or less, and a few other things, we have to ramp up.
That's pretty impressive, actually. So if I got it correctly, you created some sort of a scheme, like, say, a Microsoft Excel or something, a spreadsheet, by saying, okay, this is the forecast of the industry, and if I apply this here and there, then, it makes the calculations for the amount of success that your product is going to have?
Yeah, you can basically estimate. And that one of the biggest problems that there is in the games industry, and pretty much many industries, is that people try to do things because of the trends or because of the rationale, is not because of that's the area where I have the highest chance to make a lot of money if I produce something in whatever amount of time, or if I get into this market or provide this service in this amount of time. So this is like, before you go into execution, make sure that you pick up the right apple. And to pick up the right apple, it's very easy to say, but you need kind of a framework to rationalize in numbers what you're going to be heading towards.
When are you going to open source this?
Well,
are you going to share it at least with us all?
No, I'm actually writing a book on all this, because
really?
It's all the learnings I've been doing. If everything goes fine, I'll be publishing it next year.
Right.
It's just for, there is no economic reason behind it. It's just that I suffered a lot with many things in my life, and I think it's something nice then to let it go and share it with everyone so that others can benefit. And also, me as an end user, I hope I will benefit also. Maybe some people find some inspiration in some of the things, and then it helps me at having a better life in many ways.
It's great, because some people would say, okay, I'm going to patent this, I'm just going to close it, and I'm going to sell it to clients, while you're just open sourcing it by releasing a book. Isn't that great? So do you believe in this culture of sharing these learnings and your experiences, rather than saying, okay, so I invented this, I'm just going to sell it? make profit?
Yeah, I think that comes from when I started working with Trip Hopkins. I mean, one of the things that I remember the most was that, and I remember that very clearly, when we were negotiating whether we sell or not the company to them, okay? This man who came from the US, very Silicon Valley minded, etc., told me something which was, the world is continuously changing. He was like more than 55-year-old, probably about that time. And he told me, like, the world is always changing, so there is nothing fixed. What that means is that I can tell the reality today or something that works today, but still the challenge will be to figure out what's going to be the world tomorrow. So it's, I think there's nothing wrong about sharing what is in present. Yeah.
That's great. So actually, this is one of the things that you said you apply to your company, but probably did it, I'm going to rephrase it. Why were you appointed as the person that needed to take over in order to ramp up the company again? Did you suggest it yourself?
Yeah, I had no choice.
Okay. You
basically, like, either you ramp it up or... Yeah.
Because you said that you had this entrepreneurial spirit that, you know, it was difficult to keep you in the cage when working in another company. Was there this intrapreneur or entrepreneur that wanted to come out? Did that vision help you ramp up the company?
Yeah. I think in a way it's very important, the ability for anyone who has to take over a company. It's what I said before. The ability to convey a vision and to communicate it and to make sure that then you can create a plan to execute on that vision. Those skills are very specific and really needed for this type of things.
Did you learn that or in college, or when did you find out that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
You will say that, well, I found out later on. I didn't know it was called entrepreneur.
Yeah, of course.
So
I mean,
basically, my first attempt was when I was 7 years old. And then from then, I did all kinds of things, and I tried lots of things. So I basically always wanted to make money by doing things. And I don't know to which extent there is some part that's very genetic, because I have a daughter. And sometimes she, when she was very young, she was asking me things that were like, why she asked me, like, who pays for the streets, or who pays the librarian, and things like that. Or more recently, she came one day home and I said, what's going on? And she was with a box, and she had lots of things, and she was trying to sell them at school. And I said, why? So, yeah.
Why not? I mean, you did it yourself. What did you do when you were 7 years old? What was your first entrepreneurial experience?
Not very smart. But
if it's not legal, it's okay. We will just take it.
That's fine. I just took some potatoes and some other stuff from home. I put it at the door. Like, it's likely my parents didn't know it, so because otherwise they would have felt ashamed, because we were, I don't know, they're trying to sell some potatoes and stuff, so not very fashionable.
Yeah, anyway. Coincidentally enough, whenever we have all these entrepreneurs, our speakers here, and we learn a lot from them, but we also like to ask also about their first entrepreneurial experience, and most of the times it's either things that they are not legal or illegal, or they are hiding from their parents. Why is it? Well, is there some sort of correlation between being an entrepreneur and doing things like in a side way, like hiding from the media or something, testing stuff?
No, I think you just want to, I mean, my passion was to, in a way, to make sure that I can provide something to people, that I'm useful. I wanted to feel like I was useful, and my way of understanding usefulness was that people will appreciate what I was doing, and that was getting paid. So in a way, that was what I was trying.
Yeah, good. Let's come back to the high school days, because you just said it very briefly, but there's a discussion going on whether if you become a dropout, if you drop out of high school, you're not going to succeed. Where all people say high school is not very important. What's your take on this? Would you suggest, if you have got a really good business idea, would you just drop out and take it on later? Or
this is one. I will say that first of all, why universities exist is because for the masses, is because in the revolutionary industry, the industrial revolution, rich families required talented, like less rich people to be qualified so that they could help them create better machines and then become richer. Otherwise, the family next door will do that, and they will not be able to compete. Mm-hmm. Now, the whole education system is being designed and created, from my perspective, that's a personal opinion, with that in mind. So it's prepared to get people to serve others. Now, if the motivation of someone like mine is not to serve someone but to create, my motivation, I love to create stuff, then you don't really feel like that's what you want to do. So, for example, in my case, I never felt good studying. When I went to the UK, for example, I told the teacher, like, look, not really. I mean, at that point, I was lead developer for 5 years, and I was going to study. It didn't really make sense. I knew more than the teachers there. and we agreed that, look, do whatever you want, and then you just have to do the exams, etc. And then, so that's, I think it really depends on what motivates you. So, for example, for me to learn, I want to learn what I need for a mean. So I don't want to learn just for the sake of learning. I want to learn because I have a goal. So education is not goal directed. It's directed towards what they want to teach you. So that disalignment is very difficult for people like me that, I mean, their motivation is to create or to get to an end goal. You have a vision, I want to do this, then you go for it.
Does that also apply to corporate jobs that people are usually stressed about and they feel uncomfortable in because they are so restricted, they cannot try new stuff, and therefore they quit and become entrepreneurs?
Could I mean, if you think about MBAs, like another part of education, when MBAs were created was because some big rich families started having business globally. So they had to get, I mean, they found, like entrepreneurs found that they needed someone to manage their business abroad. So they created the MBAs for that purpose, and that they will get someone to manage their business abroad. Now it means that someone could be in a big corporate and be there and see like, well, my profile is not of someone who manages a business. I'm actually a creator. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not the type that enjoys their day-to-day by being very effective at managing a structure that has been created. My passion is to create a structure. And then, of course, in that situation, if someone is in a big corporate and that's his, her spirit, then they have to leave.
Good. This boils down to, it's one of the experiences that we always have here. We have got many people that come to the event looking for the inspiration or the final push to quit their job. So how many people of you want to create a company but haven't quit yet? You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. 1, 2, only 2. Like, come on. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. This is a very modest contribution today. Normally we've got more. What would be your piece of advice for people who want to quit their jobs and start their own thing? Like the final piece of advice. Right.
If it's about creation, what I said,
yeah.
Like make sure you have a clear vision and that you have a plan. And if you have people that they trust and believe that the vision is the right one, then that's, because otherwise there is no point on living. If you want to live but you don't really know what you're going to be doing, but if you have a clear vision, you have learned how to execute and so forth, you're going to be successful. There is no more security in a large corporation than in a startup if the startup has a very clear goal.
Good. We have seen, I mean, you probably saw the presentation that I did before, and that we had these takeaways, these highlights from every month. When I include your slide for next month or the anniversary event, what sentence would you like to see there?
Sentence there.
What would be the Manel Sor quote, TM?
Well, it said that you fail to learn. Sometimes you get it right, and then it's when you have to fail later on to learn. So the order is not the same always. So what happened to me, for example, and that's sometimes you get something right at the first time, and then you think it's not good. So then you underestimate how good you were at the first time, and then you get it wrong, and then you have to change it again. So I would say that it's not always, don't always assume that what comes from the outside is really what's going to be, how things are going to be. Or if it's for entrepreneurs, I would say like, make sure you have a clear vision before a clear plan, and it's clearly communicated to your team before you go on and take on.
Would you say that we should wait for a year till your book comes out to make sure we're not going to fail?
Well, you always can succeed or fail besides that. I think from external sources of information, like a book I can write or anyone can write or you can read anywhere, etc., that sources of inspiration, really the value of anything that comes to you is the value you make out of it. So I think it can help, of course, but it's really not up to the book to make someone successful.
Absolutely. Cool. Let's go to King, because most people have paid to see that. Some people just pay because they want to have some beers with us. Hopefully nobody wants to steal beers tonight. And a lot of people are here also for the fantastic empanadillas that we have. Mariano is over there. Thank you for coming. But do you remember the first day you held talks with King? Who contacted who and what happened there?
So, so Sebastian Natson, he's the Chief Creative Officer and one of the founders, reached me via LinkedIn through a message. He told me, look, I'm at King, etc. Would you like to have a talk, to consider a job? And I told him no, because my idea was to start a new startup with my colleague. Again, so Gerard, we had done, I think, a good job with Digital Chocolate, and we wanted to go and start a new thing. And that was my first contact with King. And then from there, Sebastian said, wait, hold on, why don't you have a talk with our chief operations officer? And then from then on, they managed to convince me in a matter of 3 days. So it took a short period of time to be hired.
Pretty impressive. So would you say that we should actually answer all the LinkedIn requests we get from recruiters, especially if we're developers?
I think it makes no harm. I mean, it's up to you, really. If you are not happy with your job and you're considering leaving, well, I think that's...
Well, how does one become head of studio at King? So obviously you've got a career there, but it takes a lot of time. You seem to be one person that's really not only entrepreneurial, but you believe in meritocracy, right? You said, okay, I knew more people at the university. So did you find yourself like promoting because of personal achievements? Is King a company that enforces that?
We are very results oriented. So, for example, at King, I think the biggest merit we have at Barcelona, there is merits which are more operational and how things were done, but in results, which is what matters in the end, is that so far we tried to produce 3 titles in the studios that I manage, and we got the 3 of them out being successful. So the one that performed the worst has been the biggest title in history in Spain. And then the other one just made it even better. And I think the cool thing is that when we started, when I hired the people, 60% of the people had never done a game before. So the cool thing is what's coming now. Now that's them learning, you know. So now 3.5 years later, what's coming in the next year and a half, I think it's what's going to be really nice for me, especially. Like I'm going to be really proud of what the teams have been able to achieve thanks to their focus and really hard work.
What would you say it was the thing that impressed them and made them contact you? Your leading management in chocolate?
They basically, Henrik Suronen, who is a guy that worked with me at a previous company, Digital Chocolate, he recommended me to Sebastian. So Sebastian said, well, who should I contact if I want to set up a studio in Europe? Because he had been in Germany afterwards, and then he was at Singapore. And then he told him, one of the people you should contact is Manel. And that's why they contacted me.
Is the decision of opening a studio in Barcelona was taken by King or was taken by you?
That was mine.
Okay, and why Barcelona?
Because that's where I used to live, and it's the area I know the best. So I'm fully aware that there is a lot of talent, and I can take a lot of side-thinking strategies. Like, as I said, I wouldn't be able to hire 60% of the people that has never done the job if I was starting a company in Berlin or London.
Okay, yeah, I was actually going to say, if you lived in London, you knew perfectly how companies in London operate and all of that. Why didn't you start in London?
Because it will be way higher way more difficult for me to scale at the speed I did with the quality I did scale. So you have to keep in mind that in the first 4 months I went from 0 to 57 people. Okay. So that's a lot of growth, and to do something like that in London, I don't think it will have been possible.
Where do you actually go to find this talent? Because it's obvious we know that there's a huge talent pool of developers and creative people in Barcelona. How do you approach them as a company? Where did you find the first people?
It was all kind of, so we approached them via LinkedIn, a lot of people, advertisements, also websites, specific sector websites, trying to get all of them applying. We got a lot of applicants. I also checked the old database from King. So in the first, just to give you an idea, in the first month was about 3,000 people that we looked at CVs, etc. So.
Would you think that there's also not only, it doesn't only help to find people in Barcelona, would you say it's also a great city to retain the people? And why?
It is. I think one of a huge advantage here in Barcelona is that you can access people from all over the world. You are not constrained to just the local city and so forth. If you ask someone who is living wherever in the world and you want to convince them, because they don't really know Europe, let's say, if you want to convince them to come to Europe, I think the easiest place to upsell to them, if you do well, is Barcelona. Barcelona is the only major European city with sea and coast, and it's a city that is well recognized and known all over the world. You have a place where you have the seaside, you have the mountain for going skiing. It's lots of cultures. There is people from all over the world, so it's a very nice place for people to come.
Did you actually have to confront the idea of Barcelona being a party city, sand beach, paellas, toros, ole city, when you approach your bosses and say, I'm going to open a studio here?
No. Okay. No. They were fine. It's like, do whatever. I mean, King philosophy was very like, okay, you want to set up your company, okay, fine. We want to make you an offer. So we won't hire you like as in a big corporation where we operate, blah, blah. We're going to be hiring you as an entrepreneur. You go, you set up the company, you grow it, and you run the business. So that was the philosophy when we started. That's how they convinced me to drop the idea and the concept that I had, because I was very advanced in negotiations for a startup, and then move into King. Because for me, it's been it's like a startup.
Good. Actually, you don't only hire developers or a lot of people. Actually, I've been told that you are already 600 people, or way past over that. And you also are great at retaining them because you have a really strong company culture. We have seen the video. And not only you have video games, free meals, and everything. So I work in business development, and I go visit many, many offices from many companies. And I've seen really bad company offices and really amazing offices. But yours was truly the first one in which I felt like in San Francisco. Is that your vision? Did you actually want to have it like that?
For me, it's all, there is like, in order of significance, I mean, the main way to retain any employee is results. So people, what they love the most, if you work on whatever, so for example, we do games, so the thing that will retain the most my staff is that if they do believe genuinely that what they're doing is going to be the best games in the world. Okay? That's the first motivation on retention. Now from here, you go into details, you have the ambience, the space, compensation and so forth. Those things help, and that's why it's a matter of detail. So basically we start with the foundation, which is results, and then from then on we put everything at the same level of demand. So if we are the ones that want to offer the best games in the world, the office needs to be the best offices in the world and so forth.
Good. Actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because it's very clear that you were hired as an entrepreneur, so you created a company within a big company, within a big corporation that is already King, right? So who did you fire first? Who did you hire first? Not fire. We're going to go to that later.
So some context first. I mean, something important, I think, regarding when I joined King is that I was coming from a bigger company, joining a smaller company. So King, when I joined King, it was the whole company was about 250 people.
Oh, it's not that big.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So it was actually smaller than the company was coming from. Okay. But their business case, what I was saying before about platform, so it was very simple. Like, we're going to be doing Facebook and mobile games. We're going to be taking games from our casual portal, which we know are successful, and put them into these new platforms. And we're going to be using a freemium model with a Saga envelope, as we call, which is the map and so forth. And that business model was very strong. That's why I joined them. Then regarding the... so you were saying?
The first people you hired.
Yeah, first one was the office manager, actually. Nice. So that, because I needed an office, it was very painful to set up the company. It took us 2 months for several reasons, because of some legal requirements that they wanted. The first role I needed was an office manager to help me on finding an office, starting all the paperwork.
Good. Actually, I was going to ask you, one of the things that we actually ask to everybody that comes here on stage is what difficulties did they have in the process of creating a company? Because it's, all these paperwork, the red tape, everything, Barcelona seems to be one of the defects that we've got over here. Would you say this is something we need to improve?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of improvements already since I started. So one of the big problems for me was that it's very difficult for foreign companies to understand that the best way to set up a company in Spain is not to set up it, but to buy an existing company and change the name. So that whole concept for them, it's like, no, I mean, we're going to do it the proper way. And just because all of that things go really slow then. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a necessary pain, not only for external. I think that is kind of fine. If a big company like King wants to set up a company, they will do it. They will sort it out. The problem is when someone who goes out of the university has a brilliant idea and wants to start up a business here in Spain, the entry barrier for them is huge. All that paperwork for them is like, it's just scary. And because all the education system, as I was pointing out before, is not towards creating stuff, but to serve someone else, none of this thing is taught. So, I mean, people really are scared about. So I think that's the problem we have.
Actually, we've been talking a little bit about the team, but what about sales? So I take it that you got like some sort of budget and some products that you could start marketing on, right? So how did you start bring money into the company when you set up this new small baby King in Barcelona? So you were selling the products of the other King studios.
Yeah, at the beginning, yes. We released our first product 6 months after, and we were paying all the costs of the company of the whole organization in Barcelona about 7 months later.
Okay. What is since you have had to market your products in different markets, different countries, what is the thing that you have learned that probably we could profit from and say, okay, I want to sell in the States, I want to sell in Sweden. What do we need to take into consideration in mobile gaming?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that the global market is a lot more, I mean, the world as a whole is becoming more and more similar. So it's not like you have to specialize that much for lots of different countries. If you look at the #1 selling films, etc. in the world, like Frozen, for example, did really well in Japan as well as in the US and so forth. So the market is very global now.
Okay. Actually, one of the things that we talked in the last event we were talking about big data, right? Yeah. And I was wondering whether at King you do that and you learn about your customers. Do you profile them? Do you learn from them?
Yeah, we learn a lot, I mean, from customers. They tell you what they like, what they don't like, what they want you to do. So basically, that's a whole discipline. It's very interesting. Basically, what's important, I think one of the main things in data we've done is to be able to model and foresee and forecast the company performance. So right now, for example, at King, we are really good. We forecast more or less with 5% error maximum. How well the company is going to be performing in the next few months, and that's really good.
What do you know about Barcelona players? I mean, do you know specifically about this market or Spain as a whole?
Spain is a good market. It's not bad. So it's a market where people like to play. So we have a lot of players just in Spain, daily active users. So today we have more than 6 million people playing our games. So that, for example, is
how many of them are politicians?
Quite a few, I guess.
Just kidding. Now, I wanted to ask, who is the person in charge of designing or coming up with the ideas of new games? Because your games have been really successful, and King is not a company of a one-hit wonder. Like, you've got many successful games. So who comes up with the idea, and then...
We follow many different strategies. I mean, the one that is, I think, comes up with the biggest weight right now is what I was saying, like, you analyze, because the King, how it worked is that we created these games in the portal, we spotted the ones that perform, and then put them, because we had the data for those games, put them in the mass market of mobile. That same approach you can do by doing historical analysis, figuring out what are the type of genres that work, and then you create a game. Now, in the process of creation, a trend in many creative sectors, which I think is wrong, is that you say, okay, I want a bottle of water, okay? And then a team has to pitch about how to do the bottle of water, and there is one guy or two that think about it and so forth. They conceive the bottle of water, and then there is a team that executes. So basically, you start with 2 people, and you end the execution with, let's say, 20, 40, whatever, okay? That doesn't make sense to me, because from my perspective, if the biggest single point of failure is the first decision on which bottle of water you want to do, why is where you have the less brains working? So what we do is, we split into small teams that don't communicate between themselves, they all are given the same key message, like develop a bottle of water, and then they do it. They come up with an idea of how to do it. And then we evaluate them. Each team, it's very important, creates 3 ideas of bottle of water. So that, because sometimes in teams, in team dynamics, there is one that has a very strong voice, which scares the others. And if they have to create 3 pitches, then all the ideas will come through. Okay? And then you look at everything, and from there, everyone shares what they've done, which is hidden, and then they are surprised, like, oh, you thought about this, that. And they have to steal the best ideas and then come up with another round. And with all of that, we reduce a lot the risk on the later on execution. So,
how is the composition of these teams, actually? What is the composition of one game team and King, more or less?
It depends. I mean, teams, like in general, in games, the best way to organize teams is pluridisciplinary teams. Usually it's 1 designer, 1 artist, and 2 developers. And from this space, you can model. What's very important is that teams should never be more than 7 people. There should be a very clear team leader, appointed team leader. Okay? So basically, you establish units of 7, maximum 7 guys. You give them very clear guidance with weekly checkpoints, so that everyone there is very fluid communication, and then there is a very clear team lead that, in case the producer is not there on the day-to-day, they can manage everything.
How actually? I was also wondering, how do you keep the company culture inside the products? Do you actually transmit that into the product itself, not only on the daily being? Because, you go to the office, you have these free meals, you play video games. Yeah. It's really cool,
we do. Like there is a lot of things that we've had lots of discussions. Like, for example, shall we modify dynamically the level so that consumers pay more and things like that? And because our values is to be fair, and things like that, we don't do that. Or so in many aspects of key product decisions that we have to make, we apply our company values.
Actually, what I was going to ask, what are the company values of King, and if you can give a couple of examples of how to apply them in real life.
Most important ones is that we want to be fast and fluid. So the entrepreneurial spirit is all over the company. I said in the way I was hired and I was asked to operate, it's very clear. Another one is passion and performance. We want people to really be passionate and perform and so forth. And we want to be also fun and friendly. So we want people to be really nice, cheerful, and take things not too harsh. Because in any creative environment, failure is the daily normal. Okay, so you have to take it easy, because you're going to be failing a lot. So it's very important that people, when they fail, is like, I don't know, it's just something normal.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask, how long does it take normally to design a game? Since you start, you can see the idea until you launch it, on average.
It depends a lot on the platform, type of game, and so forth. Games range from anything. I've done games from a month and a half to games that last for more than 2 years. So it really depends on the type of product.
Okay, perfect. I also wanted to ask, because normally we talk a lot about the companies, but also it's important to share that we have personas here. So we're human beings, and you obviously organize your daily life. You have your productivity tips. What are the apps that you use, etc., etc. So you're going to delve a little bit into that. So, like, how is a day in the life of Manel Sor when it comes to, from the moment you enter the door at King? How do you organize your day?
So first thing I do is I think about the week. So I plan, what do I want to achieve this week? And it's very product oriented. So it's like, what do I expect to see in the products during this week? Because that's what makes the money. So I plan the key goals. I want to achieve this, and this. Then I spend most of my day there is a lot of product meetings, discussing a strategy and the product, what we're going to be achieving during the next iteration. And then there is a lot of HR, finance, facilities, noise, that there is a lot of stuff that they have to do. So I first model the key things that I want to achieve, and then during the day I adapt based on demand.
Where do you get your best ideas? Actually,
from the teams.
Okay, not in the shower.
No. Well, sometimes, but sometimes sleeping, you wake up and you have ideas. But the best ones is like when I take that idea that I had, and then I put it in front of the team in many different ways, until I see and they shape it up. I say, why about this? They come back, and by doing that, we shape it up, and then we come up with something that's great.
So you, as a boss, do you actually enforce the creativity and entrepreneurship attitude within your team, or do you like to manage everything?
No, I think teams are really, I have a lot of very smart people, and what I strive is to give them a lot of ownership. So what we do is we do an alignment on direction on a weekly basis. We say we are headed towards that. We don't measure tasks or how much work are you doing or blah, blah, blah. We make sure we are aligned of we want to go there. And there is, if we have a week, we have a scope that is like 2-3 weeks. Why? Because then they can pivot and they can be a lot more creative at figuring out how to get there. And then we check after 1 week. Because I trust them, and then we say, okay, where we got? Here. Now let's replan. How do we reorientate this to get to where we want?
Good. It's actually impressive because managing a company of 600 people would not be easy, especially when reporting to, other countries and all of that. And most of these big companies, they have time tracking, productivity tools and all of that, and you seem to be giving a lot of freedom to your employees. Do you believe in this confidence that your trust that you place upon them? Do you think this is a more productive approach?
I mean, in planning, let's be clear. It's not like we do random stuff. I mean, first of all, we work only with working days. We never think about the year as a year, months, etc. We just think about working days. We plan for the teams. We set very clear schedules. And what we do is, I mean, the difference is that rather than looking at what people, I mean, imagine that my task here was to put this bottle of water here. What you don't want to be telling me as a manager, I take the bottle of water, put it here, blah, 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 etc. And then you find out that's an open bottle. And then you have to redo it. So the cost, and what's very important for me is that people understand what they have to do. So make sure that there is a bottle of water for someone, there is something to drink for someone who's going to attend. And then they figure out how to make it. You don't have to tell them. That way they will come up with something that's always better. And one of the biggest problems that you have in production and productivity is many times that people focus a lot on specifying, quantifying, and so forth, forgetting about the real important thing is to make sure that you clarify where you want to go to.
Good. Let's go into the last set of questions, which are more or less quicker questions, faster questions. And I would like to know what key thing have you done or have you taken from your previous company that has applied to King and has helped King grow, if there is any?
I will say the main two things is, first one is my way of looking at the market and coming up with business cases. That's one. Another one is the way to manage teams. So I've been applying for quite a while. Like when you grow an organization, for me it's very important that you create silos of 80 people that are fully independent, very clearly delimited, and so forth. That's because a leader cannot manage more than 80 people. So, because if you go beyond that, it starts to be very, very shaky. And it's less effective than if you just have these 80. Now, within these 80 people, you have to manage what I was saying with groups of no more than 8 people. And that's very important.
Good. What is the weirdest idea has ever come somebody to you with? What is the weirdest game idea?
Plenty. And some of them we even made. I mean, someone told me, like, man, we should do a game about window cleaners. And we did it. Back then, so yeah, we've done all kind of stuff like that. Now it's a lot more focused. Okay, so I'm telling you about more on the early days. Now what we do is listen at the consumer, see what they want, figure out what they really want, and then that's what we produce. We don't produce what we think we would like to do or so forth. We are at the service of the people that play our games.
Good. If you could talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say? What would be your piece of advice sending to the past? That's a really tricky question, isn't it?
Follow your instinct, I will say.
Good. It's time also, we also like to dedicate this 1 minute to say hard truths, okay? What do we need to improve in Barcelona to make it the best entrepreneurial scene, the best ecosystem?
For me, I mean, the main thing is to make sure that people, it's back to what I was saying, because it's recurring, but I think it's first of all, it's technically known that 60% of the projects that have a clear vision, plan, and well communicated to the team succeed as a hit, okay? So that means that knowing that more than out of every 100 businesses, in about 5 years' time, maybe there is 7 alive, okay? That means that most of the business don't do that. So most of the business either fail at not having a vision, or not communicating it to the team, or not having a plan to execute. So basically, that's, I think in Barcelona, we need to somehow teach people how to manage all of this. Because either we are coming with visions that are not clear or are not solid, or we don't know how to create a plan out of the vision. That's also another tricky thing. I mean, we're failing in those areas. So we'll say, let's make sure that we got those right. Then the others, like trust, commitment, how to provide feedback, things like that, is things you can work on later on, but I think the core is more on this basic vision.
Perfect. What is a productivity tip that you use daily? One thing that helps you through the day, be more productive.
just myself.
Yeah.
As an individual. I don't read my email.
Who reads your email?
Well, that's basically so. On my day-to-day basis, what I was saying about my week priorities, I don't have a priority which is read the email. I have my priorities. If I have time, I read the email. If not, I don't read the email.
Okay. Well, we know Google reads it for you, so it's okay. Yeah. Good. I'm gonna say some words, and you will come to me with the first word that comes to mind. Okay. First one is video games. Just one word. You need to say
one word.
The first word that comes to
console.
Huh?
Console.
Startups.
Games.
Barcelona.
City.
Silicon Valley.
Amazing.
Candy Crush.
Cool.
You're being very safe here. Company culture.
Important.
Startup grind.
Startup grind?
Small hind.
Yeah, I've enabled the filter here. No, but no, really nice. I think the word that comes to me is initiative.
Good. Okay, last question. Everybody has got a useless superpower. Okay, superpower that is completely and utterly useless. What's yours?
Useless?
Yes.
Superpower.
I can give examples, but if not, you can just make it up.
I have some superpowers that I am not ashamed of. That's more difficult.
Go ahead.
No, I can put my feet behind my head or things like that. But best in terms of that I would say like some ridiculous superpowers like that.
Okay, it's okay. I mean, I hope you didn't impress your bosses or your king recruiters with that.
Because they usually ask you, tell us something special. I mean, I have plenty of things. Like I was a player in a band where we played more than 1,000 people in front of more than 1,000 people. I've done all kind of, like in terms of disciplines, I've done from drawing to 3D art, going through music, and I don't know, design, psychology, etc. So there's lots of things like that. And one of the, if you want skills like that, one of the skills that people say is that they have one of these distortion fields where wherever I go, I convince people of whatever I think in a way that something that for them was perceived as impossible then becomes possible.
Good. So last one, how can we as a community help King?
I think the best way is continue doing what you do. I think what you do is a lot more important than, not because I don't know or I'm not familiar with your activities, it makes it less important. I think what you're doing is very, very, very important for the area. I wish that when I was younger, things like this were going on in Barcelona. There was nothing. So I think this is, I think basically what you're doing is great, and just continue doing what you're doing because it's really good for the community.
Cool. Thank you. Before giving the final applause and everybody will stand up like crazy motherfuckers, like in the biggest rock concert you have ever been, I would like to thank again our sponsors, and I would like to call all the team on stage, starting with Carlos and then Mark. Also the two lovely girls that have helped us tonight, Laura and Anna, they can come also on stage for a group picture. And Paul and Javi, who's over there, if you can let him know. And then we'll take a picture. So everybody stands up and makes a cheering applause. Thank you, Manel.